Okay, Boker Tov, Akut a good Yud Shvat traces of Yud Shvat should stay with us. And I think today's Hayom actually will get us there, as will today's Tanya. Okay. Starting 11 Shvat in Hayom. The routine of the day begins with saying, Moda Ani. I acknowledge, not I understand, not I know, but I acknowledge. Moda. I acknowledge before you, living and eternal King. This is said before the morning washing of the hands. In other words, they say in Chabad that nothing can touch the Moida Ani of a Jew. No impurity is there when you're at the level of Moida. Moida meaning beyond Seichel, beyond norm, beyond the norm, beyond reason, etc., etc. So nothing can touch that, even when the hands are impure. Why? Because all the impurities in the world do not defile the Moida Ani of a Jew. He might lack one thing or another, but his Moida remains intact. Not only he might lack one thing, I might add, he might perform, or she might perform things which are totally against God's will. And nevertheless, his Moda remains intact. That's one of the interesting meanings I heard over the weekend about one of the phrases in Basi Lagani, that God himself is Lamaila Aden Kates. He's above without any limit and below without any tachlis. And the word tachlis in modern conventional Hebrew means it has no purpose. So even a Jew who feels he has no purpose as a Jew, he's not awakened to that at all. He just knows that he's Jewish. And maybe even not knows that he's Jewish. We'll go that far. Nothing is lost, because the Moida Ani of a Jew, the essentialness of a Jew, is always there to be inflamed, grasped, utilized, as is our subject in Tanya. Before that, however, let's do our Refuah Shleimus, please.
Oh, God.
I didn't hear that.
Raspastara.
Okay. Refuah Shleima.
Sivya Chaya Bas Leam Masha Elko Rachel Bas Eliza Yehudis Golda Bas Eliza Hana Baruch
Benjamin.
and Rachel Blima.
Amen. They should have all Refuah Shleima.
Have a Daniela Bas Naomi Chana.
Amen. Refuah Shleima. My lesson in Tanya, we're starting a new chapter. Chapter 20 on page 272. And here in Likutei Amorim, it's on page 50. So Vehine, behold, what he wants us to behold, what he's going to explain in this chapter. First, what did he explain in the last chapter? In the last chapter, he explained that there is we call in Yiddish a pinta yid, in Hebrew, a chelek elokah mimal, a part of God himself from above, invested in every Jewish person, in his nefesh elokis, and that spark can come alive. And the way he's described it so far, the whole chapter, last chapter, was about nisyonos, being up against the wall, when a person is asked to bow down to avodah zorah, for instance. When a person, and in the whole Basi Lagani, the metaphor is when a person is at war, when his life is at stake. When a person's life is at stake, and he's required to be meiser nefesh, which means to give over his soul literally, at the point of a gun or something else, that refusal to do that, to bow down to Avodah Zorah, or that ability to face in your face someone who's about to kill you, drives a really, I don't know, neurological, visceral, brings forth an essence, from whatever it brings forth an essence, which we're speaking about, which is the essence of what he calls the Ava Misuteros, hidden love within every Jew. Now, Baruch Hashem, not all of us are going to be put to that kind of a test. So how can we access the Ava Misuteros, which is in our heart? So this he begins to explain in today's Tanya. This is just the beginning. Okay. Mehine, Medois Zois. This is known, Lekol, to everybody. The following. Ki mitzvahs azoras avodah zorah, that the commandment and the warning against avodah zorah, strange service, literally. I mean, we understand it specifically to mean idol worship, acknowledgement and service of some other force than God. But take it literally, avodah zorah means strange service. That the commandment against strange service, shehem shnei dibros harishonim, which are, I'll put the word encapsulated in the first utterances of the Ten Commandments, where God said, well, number one, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and he said, V'layeh lecha, and you should not have any other gods. So we're going to, as this rolls on, open up this whole thing of any other gods. We've spoken about it a number of times, particularly at the end of Tanya, that anything, including living with the mistaken perception that what you see is what you get, and that there's not more than that, is a strange way of behaving, even though it's a very natural way of behaving. We're going to learn that it's a strange way of behaving because there's something else going on that's much more essential and is the source of all the reality, which gives us the outcome of there being something tangible. But our focus on the tangibility of it, it blinds us to the eternality and the elokus and the godliness of it. So the first thing, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and he says, you should know, I am God, your Lord, your God, and there should be no other gods at any level, materiality, ideologies, those should not be your gods. And this first statement in the Torah, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and V'layeh lecha Elokim acherim, hem klalos kol haTorah kulu, is the entire Torah. The first sentence. That's all you need to know. But you need to know, what does it mean? And what do you do with it? And that's, of course, is what we'll be explaining. First of all, know that the utterance, what God says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Anochi, that I, capital I, koilel kol ramach mitzvahs aseh, includes all the 248 positive mitzvahs, and the negative, v'lo yeh lecha, and you should not have, koilel kol shesah mitzvahs leis aseh, includes all the 365 negatives. That's the first thing to know. 2 words, all of a sudden we've got 248 positive, 365 negative. And as a result of that those things are contained in those 2 phrases, Anochi v'layeh lecha, Shomanu Anochi v'layeh lecha, we heard, all of us, our souls were there at Matan Torah, and all of us heard these 2 words directly, mipi hagavura. He doesn't bring that, yeah, he does. Mipi hagavura, from the mouth of the Gavura. The Gavura is the strong one, which is a reference to God as God contracts himself. As you know, we've talked about this word Gavura. Gavura means judgment sometimes, Gevura. I'm looking at you with Gevura and judgmental eyes. It means power. It means contraction, as I'm doing with my hand, right? Chesed is open-handedness. Gevura is closed-handedness, right? So when God comes out of his allness, so to speak, and begins to manifest yesh, substantiality, from the insubstantiality, that's a power of Gevura. So God is called the Gevura. So we all heard the Torah directly from God as God invested himself in those two first words of Torah. And our souls flew out. We learned in the Drashim that our souls flew out of our body because we couldn't contain that kind of a revelation. Hashem put the souls back in our body. We experienced Techiyas HaMesim way back then. And therefore, because of the essentialness of having that experience, we have that experience as an inheritance all the time, every Jew who's born. Because we heard the Torah, all of us, mipi hagavura, those two words, which contain the entire Torah. Kamman, as the sages have said, it's a Gemara in Makos, mipnei shehem klalos haTorah. They told us that. We all heard the Torah from the Gevura, from the one who constricts himself to bring himself down into this physical reality. Why did we hear those two things? Because those two things embody the entirety of the generality of Torah. To explain this well, first we have to mention Bekatsora in a short way, what, and they're going to explain the topic of what is the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the oneness, Akdusa, Echad. What is the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, Nikra Yochid, he's called singular, Umeyuchad, and unique. Ultimately, he is the only thing that is. That's Yochid, singular, and unique. There is nothing else like him. V'chol ma'aminim, and all of us believe, not think, believe, shehu levadehu, that he alone is. That he alone is, that he remains as he was, just as he was before the worlds were created. This is a fundament of our religion, of our perspective on the truth of what God is, that God himself, in his very self, in his very essence, has not changed. He's just as he was before the worlds were created. Sheyahu levadeh, where he was alone. So just as he was alone then, before the creation, so he remains one and alone after creation. Now, that may pose a question in your mind. Then what is all this? Where's it coming from? It all comes from God, right? God is the one who invests himself in it all in order to make this multiplicity. And we have all this, immeasurable, uncountable multiplicity in the cosmos and deeper than the cosmos. So how is it that he's alone? Kimashikasav, it's written, we have a pasuk that's written, and we actually say this in the morning prayers. Atohu achalim ha'olam, you are the one who was alone. You are the one who was before the world was created. And atahu mishenivra ha'olam, and you are the same one who is after the world is created. Pirish, which means hu mamish. So when we say that about Hashem, we mean, and this is where he's beginning to zero in and beginning to give us guidance about how to reconcile what could be a contradiction, right? He's one, and yet nevertheless there's many. How do we reconcile that? So when we say that he's one, we're speaking about Hu Mamish, he himself, Bli Shum Shinui, as he exists in a essence that is never changing. To conceive, as is written, we have a pasuk, Ani Hashem Lo Shanisi. I am Hashem Lo Shanisi. I haven't changed. So there's an Ani, there's an I, right? An I that never changes. This is called in other, I'm not sure, but I think we'll get to it. We'll start referring to this as Atzmus, essence of Hashem, essence of Hashem, the Ani, the I, myself, and I, right? Me, myself, and I, never change. Ani Hashem Shanisi. Now we'll deal with the other stuff. Ki olam hazeh, this world, and all the upper worlds, they don't cause any multiplicity, any change in the singularity of God. When they are created from nothing to something. The ayin still exists. The ayin, the singular point, which contains in it the possibility of everything, before those possibilities become realities, exists all the time. That's called the ayin. And the yesh is an emergence from there of the manifestation of those possibilities, the ayin. But the ayin never goes away. The ayin is there, and the ayin is what they say, is a tag, approximately a tag for essence of Hashem. And essence of Hashem is invested in everything. And that's why we say, Hu levadehu, he alone is, because essence is invested in everything. And that doesn't contradict the fact that there are many things, because many things is the power that emerges from him, back to our beginning, called the power of Gevura, the power to constrict himself, and in constricting himself to hide that ayin and reveal a lot of stuff. Me'ayin liyesh, from nothing to something. So we now have, we're at the place where we can say clearly, without contradiction, that just as he was alone, he was singular and unique before the creation, so he, that essence, still remains singular and unique even after he created them. Mishum, why? Because the kule kameh kale choshev, because all the stuff, starting from the highest levels, Adam Kamman, the primordial man, the primordial structure of reality, all of that, and all the way down to the lowest ant in Olam Hazeh, the lowest louse, the creepy crawling in Olam Hazeh, are considered like nothing. Ayin ve'efes mamish are considered like nothing and absolutely nothing in front of him. Kula kameh, everything in front of him is considered like nothing. Ki hisavis kol halonim, is because the bringing into being of worlds, the higher worlds and the lower worlds, me'ayin layesh, from nothing to something, v'chiyusam, and their life and their kiyumam and their existence, amakayim, which he keeps them which he keeps them extant, that they shouldn't return to nothing, as they were nothing, meaning before they were expressed from his essence, they were all embedded in his singularity. That's only his so-called speech, the ruach piv, and the breath of his mouth, hamalubish behem, which is enclosed in them. Now I went a little farther just to finish the thought. We'll start again with that last sentence tomorrow. But that's the fact. Some people I know who are religious even have a hard time with this, and they say, therefore, they mean all the creation's an illusion, right? The answer is no, it's not right, and it's expressed in that everything is kamoi. It's as if it's nothing. It's as if it's a something, but it is really a something. It's not just an illusion. This is really, really, really real. But it's a lower level of reality than the reality of, at the deeper level, on God's Etzem, where in God's Etzem, there is only Him. And these two exist concurrently. And the big blessing is that the essence of God flows into all the Gevurah and manifestation of God. And so essence is there. Okay. Comments, questions? Riza. Riza, you there? Well, maybe it's Rivka. I can't tell.
It is.
Oh,
Hi.
Okay. Hi. Sorry.
It's so familiar from what we learned this year in Basilagani. In Perak Yud Daled, because which is talking about how Hashem from the highest, there's no limit to the heights and there's no limit to the lows.
The depths. Yeah.
Right. And that it's all Hashem, but it is not, but it's a representation. It's its own existence, but it's infused with Hashem's essence, Atzmus.
That's what he's saying.
So it's very, very consistent.
Baruch Hashem.
Yes, it's always nice when that happens.
The Torah is consistent. Yeah.
Very nice. No, but it's hashgacha too. That we get to learn it from various angles, and so it
absolutely
sinks in better. We can absorb better from something for everybody. So
when I was first learning, when I started, and I came across what everyone comes across with, things that looked apparently as contradictions, right? I mean, the biggest one, yesh me'ayin, how do you get something from nothing, right? But anyway, I started to develop this metaphor, which in my own mind, I'm just passing it on because it works for me, whether it works for you or not, of cutting facets in a jewel. I mean, the Torah is this one thing, and God is this one thing. And if you just cut a facet, you get a certain light. If you cut another facet, you get a certain light. But it's all coming from the same jewel. So that works for me. Whether it works for you or not is up to you. But that's what it is. These are all different angles on reality, different levels of reality. And you have to know where you're talking in order to understand what we're talking about.
Right. Another analogy that works is everybody in a circle looking from different angles at the center. They have different perspectives. And that's a nice way to accept other viewpoints. It's that everybody can look from a different perspective, but we're all looking at the same thing.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Ubechein. So what? What do I do with this?
For me, it's a lot of acceptance. Even the evil in the world that we're dealing with, specifically, to know it's all from the same source.
Absolutely,
it's up to us to deal with it in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's and from Basi Lagani, of course, that this is when you say deal with it in the right way, to deal with it in a way that embrace that Ein Sof, which is in everything, and embrace the person in whom that Ein Sof is, regardless that he has maybe what appears to you as Ein Tachlis. That's the metaphor that's used. Lamai lama aden kates, lamata aden tachlis. And in modern Hebrew, tachlis means I have no purpose. Even a person who's wandering around on the edges of reality in a dream, know that the Ein Sof is there. Lamata aden tachlis, and go for that, and with that, embrace that person. Yeah. So that's a good way to behave. So I'm sure there'll be opportunities for that in most people's lives. Something comes up which gets in your face, and maybe we can utilize some of this that we just learned to look through it or look past it, look deeper into it. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.